Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Aldridge,
I'm your co-host, Luis Gomez.
And I'm your co-host, Kyle Sullivan.
and we have a very special guest on the podcast today. Thank you for joining us, the host of Celtics Talk Weekly, Rob Haytayan. Thank you for joining us. You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, I got to give you props. You nailed the last name. I don't always get that. So thank you guys so much for having me on today. I'm very excited to talk about some Celtics and rough game last night, but that's okay. They look pretty good, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say really quick with the last names, it's funny because Cameron Tabatabai came on the podcast too. And
Right.
we're talking about this, and he's like, wow, you nailed my last name. And I was like, I tell you, I was gonna text you last night, but I'm like, watch, I'm gonna study this and I'm gonna get it done.
I got to give you props. You nailed it, man.
So kind of really quick, I have a question. Just how did Celtics Talk Weekly start? How did you like kind of become a host with that? And just give me the background about that. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I was a senior in high school and I had just finished my basketball season and I was kind of in a spot where I was like, geez, I don't, basketball is a big part of my life. And I think as at some point you kind of hit the road where you're like, I'm not going to be playing basketball forever. So I was like, okay, how can I incorporate, basketball into my life every day still? And I started up Celtics Talk Weekly. It was initially just a podcast and eventually, I had my co-host now, who's the co-owner, Justin Lowe, Celtics Rising, on an episode, and it went really well, and we started talking. So now, fast forward about 4 years, we, do post-game shows, we do podcasts, we do special shows, and yeah, it's worked out really well. We have over 10 guys working for us, and it's been a lot of fun, and it was. I'm very pleased and very happy. You start something like that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I actually was saying to David that I actually watched that show last year when I was in school. Like I would watch it during my study halls and stuff like that. It's just
I appreciate it.
yeah. Very inspiring for sure. So what is kind of like because we're obviously doing this podcast over here and we know how much work it is. What does the work go into making those podcasts be how they are and those post game shows? It's a lot of work for sure.
It is, and that's a great question. The behind the scenes work is something that you got to do as a team. I think is the most important thing. Divvying stuff up, finding ways to work together in the most efficient way possible, and just leaning on each other. Something I think I found with Celtics Talk Weekly is the best thing is to just be honest with each other. If someone's not working as hard as they need to be, or if you miss a game for some reason, just be honest because honesty goes a long way. And I would definitely say that for for sure. And then the other thing I would say in terms of behind the scenes stuff, it helps when the games are blowouts because it allows you to set up for the show. Last night I give a lot of props. Joe Mazzulla, 6 minutes left, 5 minutes left. He pulled the starters. I was able to get the graphics ready. So yeah, definitely I'd say, honesty and collaboration and, Celtics do your job to make my job easy.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, currently the Celtics, obviously, besides last night, have been playing great. Do you guys kind of want to get into kind of how they've been playing and what's just your thoughts?
We're at an interesting part of the season for the Celtics because they started off the year red hot. They came out, they looked like they were playing to prove something, and they did. They started off 19-5, and then the dog days hit mid-December through January, really rough for those guys, and they were kind of playing lackadaisical a lot, winning a game, losing a game, and they kind of fell into that spiral for about 20 games. And now we're at a new point of the year where they're 11-4 in their last 15. They're waking up every game. They look, energized. They look ready to defend a title. So, for me personally, right now with the Celtics, I still like them in 7 games against everyone, just off their talent aspect. And then, I mean, they're 42 and 17 right now. So, despite this terrible, 2 month stretch, they've still managed to be at the top of the league amongst, the teams that have played consistently. So, overall, I'd say Boston, they're in a great spot. They're starting to turn it up. Last night against Detroit, I'm not too worried about that game. It was a trap game, and I'm looking forward to see whether or not they can kind of pull this ship together and get ready for the playoffs.
I
Were
think
you
Yeah, I agree.
were you worried when they were like struggling? when they're in that slump?
I think I was a little bit worried because of how hard it's been to go back to back. We haven't seen, a team do it in almost a decade now since those KD Warriors teams. So I think there was a little bit once mid-January hit and it had been a month of seeing it. I started to kind of want to press that panic button. But I also knew how good these guys are and what level they can hit when they are playing well. So while I was worried, I kind of knew in the back of my head, listen, championship hangovers happen. We're in a weird part of the season, not much to play for. I was expecting for this All-Star break time, right, the week before and the 2 weeks after, to be a real big test for these guys. If they didn't show up these past 2 weeks, that panic button would have been slammed on my desk. However, it's not.
Yeah, I think you said nailed it right there. I think the big thing is we were all worried here because we're like, all right, maybe they're just coasting, maybe they're just trying to make it to playoffs, but that's kind of like an alarming sign right there because you don't want to coast and then go to playoffs and not be experienced and ready for these bigger teams and then go into playoffs and lose, you know? So you gotta get that practice in. Honestly, the regular season is more so a practice for playoffs. I
Yeah,
think, in my
yeah, you're
perspective.
right. You're right. Yeah,
100%. And something we talk about all the time over on Celtics Talk Weekly is building good habits. You look at some of those teams that fell short in years prior, 2022, 2023, even dating back to 2020, that bubble year. Boston didn't take care of their bad habits. They allowed for their lackadaisical performance and getting comfortable, kind of creep into the playoffs. And we saw that. They would lose crucial games at home all the time. I mean, game 5 against Milwaukee in 2022, game 6 against Miami, those games really added up on them. And eventually, their tank ran out and they didn't. So something they did really well last year is they built good habits throughout consistently. This year, I really I like that point because they have to build good habits. The regular season for teams like Boston, for teams these higher upper echelon teams, it's a practice, right? The Boston came into this year knowing they're going to make the playoffs, right? It's okay. How can we practice, and I like to call it the practice test, right? Before the exam, in the playoffs are the exam. How can we ace this exam? And you trial and error. And I give credit to Joe. Joe's been trying things, and different lineups, different rotations, and it's so far. I do think we're in a good place.
I agree.
I
And,
agree.
and one thing I do have to say with that too is like that big stretch where we were just honestly just not like ourselves. The players were not playing how they usually play, and you saw struggles with Derek White. I feel like the only player who really had his head in the game was Jason Tatum, who was really giving him everything he got, you know? But we move forward, and now obviously we talked about last night, which was just a rough one, and I said it too. I said going into that game, we kind of underplay the Pistons all the time. Like Pistons last year, I talked about this even on our last podcast. Last year when we faced the Pistons, they were on that big losing streak and we almost lost to them. So it's a team that I feel we downplay them every time we end up playing them because even earlier in the season, it was a close game back and forth. I think we still won that one, I'm pretty sure, but it was close. Like so last night I wasn't shocked. I think I was more so shocked about the final score kind of being how it was and the Pistons being up by like 23, I think at one point or something like that.
Yeah,
Right.
And that just shocked me, but I think it's one where I'm moving on from it and I'm looking forward to the Cleveland game because I think that's going to be a dogfight for sure.
I
no, without a
agree.
doubt.
I agree. And if you look at the context, Boston was on a back to back, and they had Detroit they hadn't lost to Detroit in Detroit in 7 games or seven you said 7 games. Detroit was red hot. They're at home. I mean, it felt like a trap game in my opinion.
It was. And just like you said, coming off a back-to-back night, and it's tough, you know. And I think we had one with GRD. We had GRD on here,
All
and he
right, all right.
said, yeah, and he was like, it's more so the rest now. Like, I feel like you're at where you want to be. And David said it when he was on here too. He said, you want to get to that 40-20, which we're at.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, we're at that 40-20 mark. So now you kind of really want to rest more so. I feel like definitely you gotta still give it fight against the bigger games, like for example, Cleveland and Denver. But then you kind of gotta get into the mode on making sure we're healthy coming into playoffs because Porzingis, we need him this year. With Cleveland, we're gonna need him.
Most definitely. And this is what I would say on that. This next month of basketball is really important. Secure that 2 seed. You're probably not going to get one. Cleveland has kind of built themselves 6.5 games right now. They've built themselves a comfortable lead. So for the next month, you got to go all in. Give it everything you got. Tatum, you're going to have to play 38 minutes. White, maybe, 35. Brown, 30. Like, you're going to have to play some higher minutes these next month. And then once you secure that 2 seed for the last 2 weeks, then you're in playoff mode. Okay. Tatum, you're resting tonight. Tatum, you're only playing 30 minutes, stuff like that. So I got a question for you guys though, actually, because you mentioned that Cleveland game, and I'm really interested in to hear what you guys have to say. You know, here's Boston, right? They've won twice against Cleveland. Should be up 3-0, but this is a Cleveland team. They're the team trying to prove something in this game to Boston. So for you, if a Celtics loss happens this Friday, tomorrow night, do you guys think Cleveland has officially entered that conversation of, okay, they can do this and they can take down these guys?
That's a
I
great,
don't think so.
yeah.
No, I don't think so. No, because it's so different regular season compared and playoffs. They're
Yeah,
so different. There's way bigger pressure on you, and I feel like they're really young and they're not gonna be ready for that.
it's just with Cleveland too. Like they don't have like they're a very young team and like they don't have as much playoff experience as the Boston Celtics do. So like come playoff time, like you're gonna have to just see if they don't get like jitters in the playoffs, this and that, like because they haven't been to the Eastern Conference Finals since LeBron was there. So like the thing is like we're just gonna have to see what they're made of in the playoffs. But I still think that still the better team, the more talented team. But Kenny Atkinson hasn't playing well right now, and they're very, very good team. And them getting DeAndre Hunter at the deadline and stuff, that was a big get for them. And the way that their bench has been playing too, with Ty Jerome, like he's having a great year. Like Mitchell's having a very good year. And honestly, like we're gonna have to bring our best A game to beat them. And I think that we still can. I still think we're the best team in the league for sure.
I kind of want to piggyback off of that too. I think if Cleveland won this game, it would be more so a dogfight, and it makes you want that matchup come playoffs. It makes you want to see Cleveland versus Boston, just for I feel like the popularity of the game. Um, but I think this. I think kind of already said it with Donovan Mitchell. He hasn't been so experienced. He hasn't went to an Eastern Conference Finals, and with Utah, like they weren't big. I would say when he was on the Jazz. But I think this. I think ultimately when you come into playoffs, I feel like last year, obviously you saw Mitchell being out with injury. It's definitely gonna be a fight if you end up facing them in playoffs. But I think ultimately the Boston Celtics, their experience, they have the team, obviously having Porzingis in that line would help. And I think that's so important to keep him healthy.
Yeah, especially versus Cleveland size though, with like Allen and Mobley. Like we're gonna need him. Like
You need,
especially spacing the floor and like rebounding the ball and like, his rim protection because without Porzingis, it's like you have a 37-year-old Al Horford and then you have what's his name? Cornette. I mean Cornette's been having a really good year for us too, but like we're definitely gonna need Porzingis for the long run in the playoffs if we're gonna repeat,
you
without a doubt.
You do. What's your opinion, though? I want to hear kind of your opinion. If, say, Boston did lose to them, what does that look like coming into playoffs?
It looks like Cleveland managed to squeeze out 2 wins in the regular season against the Boston Celtics. And I love the point you made, Griffin, on Donovan Mitchell, because when you look at the playoffs, it's really important to look at the superstars. And, this Donovan's been very successful in the regular season in his 8-year career. He was a 60-win team on Utah with the Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley. They were very successful over there and never got it quite done. And I do think that needs to get looked into. Okay, when you're playing in the Eastern Conference Finals, who's got the best player, right? And you saw that dynamic last year kind of play out in the Western Conference Finals. It came down to Luka just was better than Anthony Edwards, and he showed out. And the better player usually wins in the NBA. Very rarely do you see the best player in a series fall short. And I look at that. If Boston loses, I think maybe the conversation starts that Cleveland can take this thing 6 or 7. But here's my thing: Boston went to the NBA Finals seamlessly without Kristaps Porzingis, who is their X factor. He was brought here to open the game up for Jaylen Brown, for Jason Tatum. So we've seen them do it, and we've seen them do it against this same exact Cleveland team minus DeAndre Hunter and like Kyle said, Kenny Atkinson. Kenny, I got a lot of props to Kenny. Kenny's got those guys playing really well. Like Luis said, yeah, I don't think you roll into the TD Garden or roll in there and the Celtics team falls. A healthy Celtics team that is falls to this Cleveland Cavaliers team, win or lose Friday. That said, it's a must win because Boston has been really bad at home, and there hasn't really been that signature win yet. And I think it's time that Boston pulls out a signature win. I mean, I say that they beat Cleveland at home when they were 15-0. That could be a signature win, but it's been a long time. Give me a signature win, ESPN game, right? Remind the league, remind everybody, because I'll tell you what, you beat Cleveland Friday, they really start to doubt themselves. And when you run into a playoff series not confident and with doubt, things can get really dicey.
Rob,
Exactly.
I love what you said right there. You said it perfectly. And I think the biggest thing is too, it would make Cleveland worry because
Right.
Definitely.
right now, Cleveland fans and just Cleveland as a team, they think they could steamroll anyone. They've been on a tear absolutely all year. They think the 2 games that they lost against the Celtics were fluke games. They think they should have won that game. But it makes it so if we have the season series 3-1, it makes them scratch their head and be like, wow, okay, well, we lost this one now. Now we gotta come to that question. Okay, are we worried now? Because right now, Cleveland as a whole, I feel are just like they're not humbled. They're killing every team. You saw them destroy the Orlando Magic. I don't know if they're still undefeated with the West Coast. Uh, Correct me if I'm wrong on that. They might be. I think so. But with that, like they're dominating teams, and right now they're like we don't have a threat. So really getting that statement win against the Cavs would
Yeah,
just
it'd be huge.
honestly shake them, I feel like, and that would make them nervous. And then coming into a playoff series, they're gonna be like, okay, wow, look what happened. This is unexpected. We don't know what to do anymore.
And the thing is
And
about Cleveland, they definitely are overperforming this year. I mean, no one expected them to be the 1 seed and the best team in the league. I expected them to definitely be a top 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, but no one expected them to be this good. And Kenny Atkinson has them playing very, very well. And Mitchell's having a great year. Mobley was an all-star, Garland was an all-star, Mitchell was an all-star. They have all these good players and they're playing very well. And to be honest, we're gonna have to humble them on Friday, and we'll see. And honestly, we need to bring our A game. We need to play how we've been playing. Coming off a loss versus Detroit, we're gonna have to bring our A game, and we're gonna have to give it our best fight because we're gonna have to show them who the defending champs really are.
And I'll say this from a Cleveland standpoint. It's not given you're about to roll up to the Eastern Conference Finals and play the Boston Celtics. You don't get that credibility. You haven't proven that. The only team that you get to assume is going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals is the team that is the defending champs and has been there 4 out of the last 5 times. That's the only team that's given that that rite of passage. And I'll say this: last year, the Knicks were the shoe-in to be the Eastern Conference Finals matchup against the Boston Celtics. Injuries did derail kind of their postseason, but they had Brunson playing at an all-time level. And here came a pesky Indiana Pacers team that had a lot of grit and a lot of fight, and they took them down. So I will say, as much as meaning we want to put into this game, right? And I agree with everything you guys are saying. I really think this game could be a statement win for Boston. Oh yeah, you thought everyone clean. Nope, put that to the side. At the end of the day, the Cleveland Cavaliers They have to do something they haven't done since LeBron James has been there. Donovan Mitchell has to do something that he's never done in his career, and that is make the conference finals, right? Get there. And they haven't. And, you got teams right now like Detroit and Indiana who are breathing down their neck, right? Really, because Milwaukee, you're assuming they're going to fall off a little bit. Detroit and Indiana might be that 4-5 matchup. And those are three teams, pesky teams that if Cleveland rolls in with this, oh, we got a free pass to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're gonna get, they're gonna get
tough teams.
surprised.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely tough teams.
100%.
Like they could definitely give them problems. If not, like Cleveland maybe wins, but I could see like those series going 6-7 games. Like Detroit's a solid team. Like Pacers made the conference finals last year. Like they have a good team. Carlisle's a good coach. Like they have a great offense. Like all those teams are solid teams, and they could definitely have a chance of giving Cleveland problems, if not beat them, like without a doubt.
100%.
And could I add on to that, Kyle? I want to say this too. I feel like people now, and I said this at the beginning of the season, I was saying how the Pistons, I was saying this to people, and I was like, they have a solid team this year, and
Yeah,
people are
Malik Beasley's
laughing
playing
at
on a
me.
tear right now. Malik
Yeah.
Beasley, he's playing really great basketball.
And people were laughing at me about that, but like you look at this and Rob, you said it right there, that the Pistons would kind of be a team where the Cavs go into the playoffs and they're like, all right, this is an easy sweep, even. I feel like Cavs fans would say. And the Pistons are that team that could kind of upset them. They're one of those teams that no one is expecting them to be this good. They're on an 8-game win streak now, just beating Boston. Like beating the defending champs is a lot. Even if you're the Pistons, like the Pistons now, you gotta look at them and they could be a sneaky team to knock off the Cavs for sure.
Without a doubt.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I just kind of want to ask too. We were talking about this on the podcast yesterday. Who would you say is like a threat to Boston? Would you say is there a number one threat that you don't want to see or kind of that could give the Celtics some trouble?
Yeah, there are two. One of them being in the other conference and the other one being themselves. So I'll say this. In the East, it's themselves. The only team that can beat the Boston Celtics in 7 games are the Boston Celtics. Out West, it's Denver because Nikola Jokic is probably the only time Giannis in the Bucks, but the Bucks aren't as good as what Denver has around Jokic. Jokic is the only time I'm going to roll into that series and think to myself, okay, we don't have the best player. Jokic in every game and probably almost every scenario will be the best player out there on the floor. So that's the one team I look at and I think to myself, okay, I do think Boston could be in for a tough series. You look at Oklahoma, you look at Cleveland, you look at, Houston and, Dallas and LA now and New York. It's a lot of noise with those teams. It's really not anything Boston needs to worry about or seen as a threat. But yeah, it's themselves in Denver, just because anytime you got Nikola Jokic on your team, you got a good chance at coming out with a win.
No, I love that statement because it's one too where it's tough, and that's why these two games are important because I feel like you could potentially see a Cavs team in the playoffs and you could potentially see the Nuggets. So these are big games. I don't think in a necessary like obviously I want as a Celtics fan, I want them to win these two games, but I think I would be happy if they come out getting a good game scheme against them, just kind of figuring them out because these are two teams that you could potentially see in the postseason.
100%. And I'm going to
Exactly.
say this. Cleveland, that game, you win it. You want to win that game. You want to win every game, right? But say you lose that. There's not much stock. I mean, there's a little bit of stock, but not like a whole lot of stock in that game. The Denver game, though, this core hasn't beaten Jokic before. We've seen Denver once earlier on in the year, back in January, and we got the best of them, but Jokic wasn't there. So the Denver game, that's a game I circle and highlight, and I'm like, okay, this is a finals feel. This is a playoff type of game. Cleveland will also be like that, but you got to prove it. That's one game where I'm like, okay, Boston, you kind of got to prove it tonight because you haven't beaten Jokic. Denver got the best of them twice last year, and you got to see them be able to beat Nikola Jokic because right now that guy, that fat white boy, he's the guy to beat. And he really is, in my opinion, this generation's best player right now, what we got.
Oh, without a
And
doubt.
and you got to beat him. You got to roll in, right? You got to Denver, that game on 1 o'clock prime time. Oh, I'm excited for that. That's going to be fun. You got to beat Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, and the thing is with Jokic, like he plays off his passing. Like he plays off other players, and like if he's like passing the ball and like distributing the ball to all his players, like he can have a big game. Like honestly, like our best way to beat Jokic is definitely with his scoring, because I
Right.
think that Jokic plays at a very slow pace. Like he plays very very slow. So if we like make him do that, I think we'll have a very good chance of winning.
Right. Jokic, big Jokic fan.
Yeah, I love Jokic. I love
Jokic
him.
is tough.
I
Yeah.
will
I
say
don't like him.
Really?
I don't like him
what is it? Why don't you like him?
because it looks like he's not even trying. He's like
that's
he's
how
That's the
just
good.
funny
shooting just to
part, though. Like
shoot.
that's the part I like about him. Like he just acts like he doesn't give a crap, and he just like goes out there and drops triple doubles every game. Like it's this, it's
I think
great.
it's maybe because of that. It's
I
He cares
maybe
about
because of
he
that.
cares more
When
about
you're
horse
not thinking
racing.
about it, maybe it's
Yeah.
easier for you.
Make it
He
look
cares
hard,
more.
Maybe you
He
please.
perform
cares more
better.
about his horses.
Yeah. Yeah, make it look a
Yeah.
little bit harder. Yeah. I feel that.
I agree. I think the funny thing is I feel like I figured out the other day. I feel like I was in the same boat as Lewis, but I kind of looked at it and I was like, all right, I feel like he is just such a gifted and talented player. Like he knows so
He's
much.
just so smart.
Yeah,
Like he's
he's
so
just
smart.
yeah,
Like
he's so smart and talented that it seems easy to him, you
exactly.
know? So when we watch him, we're like, oh, he's not even trying out there, but he is so more advanced than a lot of these players that it looks just so easy
And
how
you see this with a lot of like the international players now.
yeah.
Like Luca, like Shea, like all these guys that come from like international like countries and stuff. Like these guys are just way ahead of the game. Like they're all NBA ready, and like these
Needs to be
guys are
studied.
very very good players.
My thing with
Maybe
Jokic, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
maybe it's because they're like making money and they're like
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good over here. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
There's like a respect factor to it too for me, where it's like I watch Giannis, Embiid, even Luca, and so much of their game is predicated on it's just annoying. And Giannis barrels through the lane, Euro step in, and there's not much, you if you have to breathe on him, it's a foul. And Luca is complaining,
exactly.
and there's a lot of it where it's just like, oh my, like it's just annoying to watch. I watch Jokic, and I'm like, man, like like there's not much I can dislike about this other than when he's doing it to my team. So I don't know. I could see the how the nonchalantness of Jokic game can piss you off, but I mean I don't know. I'm a Jokic fan, but moral of the story: don't be a Giannis. Just it's annoying.
I
I will.
wonder.
Oh,
I
sorry.
wonder what happens if he actually tries. Like he starts moving a lot faster and stuff like that. I wonder what will
He is
happen.
trying though.
I
I
think
think
he is. I think he
He
just can't
definitely is
really.
trying, but
Yeah.
like he just acts like he doesn't. Like it just looks like he just basketball just is like second nature to him. Like literally, that's just what it shows with his game plan and his game style.
yeah. Rob, what were you saying about that real quick?
Yeah, no, I agree with Kyle. I think he's totally trying. I think one, he's just a little unathletic, so it kind of looks
Yeah,
like he's not trying because there's not much movement in his game. But I totally think he's out there trying. But yeah, I just think the athleticism really shows.
Oh yeah. But did you guys see with the Lakers kind of like that win against them? I saw a TikTok or something on it, kind of how they had a interesting scheme against him. Like they were triple teaming him and just making it so he couldn't affect the game. And and this is the thing I don't like about Lakers fans. They thought since they cut down Jokic that they're gonna win the championship now. They're gonna have an easy path because they figured out Jokic. And they were like in the TikTok I watched, they were like saying how Jokic is such a smart player that he'll figure it out. Like in a 7 game series.
but they're saying that this year,
Yeah,
this year,
yeah, it was their recent win against the Nuggets.
there's no way they with Jackson Hayes at center, there's just no way.
No way. No way.
There's no way, especially after that Mark Williams trade got vetoed. There's just no way. Like you're asking Jackson Hayes to stop Nikola Jokic, like that's a pipe dream.
Haven't the Nuggets eliminated them twice in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
swept
pretty
them last year,
seamlessly.
didn't
Yeah,
they?
pretty
Yeah.
easily too. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5 games should have been.
They've
In
been
five,
getting
I think it
swept.
was a sweep or it was a sweeper in five, I think, right
I,
last
be-
year.
I,
Yeah,
yeah, I believe 5. The funny thing with the Lakers, I got a lot of reasons I don't like the Lakers, but um, I think right now, if you're a basketball fan, ignore the noise because this was a trade, the Luka trade. They're not trying to win a championship this year. It might maybe put them in a situation where they can, but they were much better off with Anthony Davis on their team in terms of right now. This is a trade that they got gifted their next 10 years, right? So it's like, but again, with that said, biggest trade in NBA history. Lakers, probably the most talked about franchise. LeBron James, the most talked about player. So there's going to be a lot of noise with the Lakers. And, can they compete? Can they win a title? Will LeBron get his fifth? So a lot of noise, but, I think something you just got to ignore it because it's just noise. And I'm going to say this about the Jokic thing because this is really funny you mentioned this because on the post game show against God, who was it against? 2 games ago, we played Toronto.
Yep.
And we talked about, okay, how do you stop Jason Tatum, right? What do you do to slow him down? And something we said was you just got to make him a scorer at his fullest because Tatum's playing his best when he's passing. I'll say that same thing about Jokic. Make
exactly.
Jokic the scorer because the Nuggets are actually
Yes.
at their best when Jokic is scoring around 23, 24, 25, but he's dishing about 14
Yes.
assists. That's when Denver's scary. LeBron was the same way. You have to take the others out of the game.
Yeah.
You can't let Jokic dictate the game.
Especially when Jokic plays at such a slow pace.
Right.
You gotta let Denver's bench and Denver's players like Murray, Gordon, you gotta let these guys beat you.
Right. Right. And allowing Jokic to pass and get them open looks, that
Exactly.
is Jokic beating you. That's not Jamal Murray beating you. That's Jokic beating you. So it's tough. You got to tire Jokic out, put him in a lot of action, run, turn the pace up to the game. And you can't let Jokic be. It's tough. I say it because it's really tough and easier said than done. But that's my thought on that.
Yeah, I agree. So Rob, I kind of wanted to ask you, how did you talked earlier how you were a basketball player. What position did you play, by the way?
I was a center or forward, but let me say this: I'm from New Hampshire. I'm a New Hampshire center, so that means I'm like I'm not really I'm 6'3", so I like to say center. I'm a center.
That's where I am. So I'm 6'3", and I was always a center. I'm actually from Maine, so
Okay.
I'm sure we're close. So I was always like the big center, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Right there with you.
Everyone else you face is like, come on, man, you're like,
Yeah.
like playing pickup. But talking about that, kind of what brought you to the Celtics? When did you start being a Celtics fan, and kind of what was the influence behind that? I want to hear that story.
Oh gosh, I mean, I all credit goes to my dad and my brother, because we grew up in the area. I was Boston fans, like right, born and raised. Boston is just what we're all about. So, I guess my first memory really of like watching or being a Celtics fan was the 2010 finals. And we had lost game 5. I can't remember what game it was. I was what, 7. But that's when I kind of realized like, oh geez, like, oh gosh, this is fun. Like I kind of like this. And then I started playing basketball. My dad put me in a rec league. And then, being from the area, it's very rare, I feel like you're born in New England and you steer away from the Celtics. So Rondo was kind of like watching Rondo was super cool for me. Kevin Garnett was Rondo and KG were my 2 guys. And then the first game I had ever gone to was 2013 first round game. It was Pierce's last game, Pierce and Garnett's last game at the Garden. And we were down by like 25 and they made that crazy comeback and fell short. And that was my first game. And then from there on out, it was just, oh gosh, Celtics are my life now. And but like I will say this, all Boston. I'm a big all Boston. I see Luis with the Red Sox, gear on, and I saw last post game show. You were or the recap. You were rocking the hat. So definitely an all Boston sports fan. But for the Celtics, shout out my dad and my brother because they really put me on.
Yeah, we have Kyle, who's that rare breed. He's
Yeah,
there's Yankees and
Yeah, I'm
like he's
from New
from
York. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
you're from
weird.
New York. Oh, that is
Yeah,
weird. That is
my
weird.
my dad likes the Yankees and the Celtics. It's really weird. I have no idea why, but I'm
Well,
just following my
I
father's footsteps, I guess.
I can respect half it. I can respect the Celtics. Yankees, I don't know. You guys got
Yeah,
some rivalry going on then. You got Luis
yeah.
with the Red Sox and okay, I like that. That's that. There you go.
so it's actually funny. We do this thing, new podcast called Chasing the Monster that Lewis and I host. And Lewis is all so we kind of consider him this year kind of like a beginner Celtics fan, kind of from that
Right.
perspective, because he's all baseball.
You're all baseball. Okay. Well, you see Mayer's home run today?
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know the
I
Sox.
was actually listening to the game on the radio.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
know we're Celtics. We're talking C's here. With those Sox, they could be dangerous. They could be sneaky.
Yeah. And then for me, I'm in New England, so I'm
Right.
obviously all Boston,
Yeah. There you go. There
Kind
you go. There you go.
I like the
it,
Bruins too, so I mean, I have that too. But
So, okay. It's just the
yeah,
Yankees.
yeah,
That's weird.
you
Yeah,
know,
that
very
is
weird.
weird.
And my football team's even weirder.
What's
I
your
like the
football team?
Commanders, which is
Okay.
really weird, but
You're all over the place. Hey
yeah,
man, you
all
like who
over.
you like. You like who you like.
yeah. So kind of just going back to the Celtics talk.
Right.
What was your kind of I really want to hear your story with the championship. Where were you? Like, how was winning the championship for you last year?
So I've been lucky enough for my family owns season tickets. And so
Mm.
for game 5, my dad specifically said, I want you and your brother to be in the garden and experience that. So I was at the garden, section 10, proud, it's the shout out section 10 gang, sitting right there. And, this is what I said. I've said it for so long. And the process, because even in 2022 when Boston went to the finals, they didn't win any big home games, right? Where confetti came down, right? They didn't go to the finals at home. They did it in Miami. So the vision of seeing that celebration and the confetti rain down and Tatum and Brown with the trophy, it didn't feel like something that was real. It didn't feel like something I'd ever see. As a guy that literally lives and breathes the Boston Celtics. So it was like that vision was weird. So it's actually funny. Pritchard hits that half court shot, and I am losing my mind. I'm jumping up and down, and our tickets are right in front of this big glass. I don't know if you guys have ever been at TD, but they're right in front of the glass panels.
Club seats,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
Aren't they club seats?
Uh, so they're right in front of the club seats. My dad's a tall guy, and he doesn't like the small seats, so he weaseled his way into getting 2 of the tickets where like the wheelchairs in those sections go, but in the
Yeah.
playoffs they just sell them as normal tickets. So it's just like a whole row of extra seats. So I'm sitting there, and Pritchard hits that shot, and I scrape my leg. I got a big gash, and I'm start bleeding, all over the place on that Pritchard shot, and I didn't feel anything, didn't care. And then I remember Tatum's and one right in front of me. That was kind of the moment I was like, oh wow, they're gonna do this, like it's gonna happen. And I have a video on my phone of the confetti they had won and the buzzer sounds and the confetti gets shot up, and then it starts covering the sky, and you can hear me in the background. I'm like, oh my, I don't want to swear, but you can just hear me, right? Like I'm just in disbelief, and it literally, looking back on it, it felt so surreal and such a special and unique experience to be like, I'm so lucky because again, this Celtics team is so special to, I think, Celtics fans, because Brown and Tatum, you draft them, they're homegrown. You draft them when they're 18, and you see them grow up. You see them go through all the trials and tribulations, right, together, and you hear what everyone has to say. And it just felt like, it was just so cool to be there in the garden and experience that. And then the parade, the parade was a whole other story. That was awesome. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be in TD for that. And oh man, what a special, we're gonna experience it again. We're definitely gonna experience it again, but that was special.
I agree.
I in
Kyle,
fact went to game 2,
yeah.
so
You
that
went to
game was
game
with my
two.
dad.
Oh,
Yeah, that
then
game
that
was
when White
really
had that
great.
block.
Yeah, dude, the place went nuts. That
Oh,
game was so fun, dude. Like
oh yeah.
the atmosphere was crazy, man. That was only my second Celtic game ever, too. The first game
Woo!
I went to was opening night 2023 versus Philly, which was
Okay.
a good
So
game
so
too.
you've seen
So
2 wins. So we got to get you to
yeah,
more games. We got to
yeah.
get you out there.
I
Yeah,
might
dude.
if we make the finals again, we're probably gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to break my bank account again to go,
Yeah, oh
but
yeah. We got to
whatever.
try to pull some strings and get Kyle to
Yeah.
as many playoff games as we can. Yeah, get that luck going.
Hey, I tell you guys this. You guys may have went to Celtics finals game. I went to the main Celtics finals game.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
You
there you
know,
go. There you
a
go.
little different, a little different. And they might have lost, but we don't talk about that,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
no,
yeah.
no.
I went to the parade though, and I will say, um, I feel like when the first floats, I was right by TD Garden, like right by kind of there. So it's
Okay.
kind of when all the players were still like not out and getting going crazy, but I was at that part and I will say when that first float came out, the duck boat with the confetti, I like lost it. Like I couldn't feel my legs. Like I was in a different world. I was like it just felt surreal with all the confetti in the air. Like it's
It's
just like
yeah, crazy. It's just a one in a
Were
lifetime
you
like
screaming?
moment.
I was
Was he
Were you like,
screaming? Come
let's
on.
go?
Come on.
I can't
I don't
post
know,
any of the videos because I'm like like I'm well, it shows you too. I don't know if you've seen this, but I got that right after.
You know what? I did see that, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
I,
there you go.
right after we won it, like it's just been like, I will say I grew up more so a Red Sox fan, but
Right.
like my family has been big on the Boston Celtics too. So once I got attached to the Celtics, it's something unreal. And like just seeing them going through, I talked about this with GRD, like in 22 when we lost and just being heartbroken and still going to school repping Celtics jerseys even the day after we lost. So
Right.
like going through the sadness and then seeing a championship right in front of your eyes is just amazing.
Because
Great.
especially after 2022 with that
Yeah.
heartbreaking finals loss, like winning in 2024, like that was just like surreal. Like I couldn't even believe I still can't believe till this day that we won, and like like we'll never forget it. And that was just a great year overall, regular season and playoffs. Like
Right.
only losing three total playoff games, and going only having what 17, 18 losses last year. Like
Yep.
it was just a terrific year, and like capped off with a final. So
Yeah.
that's what's the
Yeah.
You
main
know,
thing.
and like you think about it, and it for me, it was so much of the outside. I try to steer away from national media now, but like 2022, 2023. I still dabble in it, first take and whatnot. But you hear what everyone says, and it's like here you are, a guy that watches every game, watches every minute, really dissects the Celtics, and you hear these things. You're like, no, that's not true. Like Tatum can get it done. Like you've seen it. You've seen the big games. 46 against Milwaukee, 51 against Philly, but for some reason it felt like it wasn't getting talked about. And then so it's like with those narratives and with everything that people said, it kind of felt like it was over. Like and people can stop disrespecting us. And it was so special, so surreal. But again, they gotta do it again. This team is good enough for just one. Do it again. I want to be there again. I'm addicted now.
Yeah, I wanted
What are
to
they gonna say now?
Definitely.
Lewis, what are they gonna say now?
What they're
Yeah,
gonna say now, part two coming soon.
yeah, I just think that's just the biggest thing. I feel like, all right, we did it once. Now you need to, you know, the Celtics fans, we're greedy. We want more.
Yeah,
And should we not want more? Like we have
and
the whole
yeah,
team back.
yeah. And if you win another championship, like this puts you in like elite conversation, like overall, just like historic wise, like we're gonna be the first team to repeat since the KD Warriors. Like and that's a great team. Like this is gonna put us in like the NBA history books if we get this done again this year. And like I think that we have the talent to do it. And as long as we're healthy, I still think that we're the best team.
Oh, I mean, you can. I don't want to say luck, but like you can win. We've seen teams win one championship, right? 2004 Detroit Pistons are like a great example of that. Although I shouldn't disrespect the Detroit Pistons, and because they were really good for about 5 years there in the mid 2000s. But like it's especially now, like we see like Denver, Milwaukee is a great example. Milwaukee won a championship, and they're kind of like coasting now. They got their championship. They're satisfied. There's jersey sales with like they're making money with Giannis, right? Fans are buying tickets. But it's like, no, if you can win two, like Kyle just said, 28, you're talking 2018 Warriors, you're talking 90s Bulls, you're talking 80s Celtics and Lakers, you're talking,
And Spurs,
2010s Heat, Spurs, like,
yeah,
you insert yourself into a different breed of the NBA. And that would be cool, for Tatum and Brown to etch themselves into that type of breed would be very cool.
I agree. And I think just a big thing in that too is kind of it shows you like there's so much Tatum hate. There's all right, he needs to get MVP, da da da. Well, I think his biggest thing, and I said this so many times, is his biggest thing is he's more so focused on winning championships right now. And I hate to say it, but there's gonna be a point in his career where the Celtics aren't gonna be favorites anymore, and that will be a time where he could
He could
execute
go for MVP. Exactly.
perfectly and go for MVP.
Exactly.
Like, but right now, he knows the situation. He knows how great the Boston Celtics are, and he sees the team around him. And right now, it's championship. Like
Exactly.
MVPs, greatness. Honestly, what matters more as a player? Do you think it's that MVP, or do you think it's the rings you have?
Kobe Bryant won one MVP. You got only one.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant, a top 10 player. You ask any NBA player, they put Kobe in their top three. I
Yeah.
mean, Kobe Bryant is like it is almost the thing for this generation. He's got one MVP. So with a player like Tatum, it's just win. I mean, like the MVPs is such a narrative in what the league wants to happen award, where I mean, Allen Iverson has an MVP, and I love AI, right? AI was special, but like Allen Iverson, like no, like you know, he's a great player, but he's not Kobe, he's not Jordan, he's not
Like,
Braun.
look at Embiid. Embiid has
Exactly.
an MVP. Like,
Exactly. Steve Nash has two. Steve Nash is a
yeah,
two-time MVP winner. So if you want to be great, if you want to be up there with Bird, with Magic, with Kareem, and all those legends, championships. And I want to say this, and I'm happy you brought this up, Griffin, because this is something that I've been thinking about recently. And you know what we're witnessing right now with Jason Tatum is very special. And this is a guy that is probably the most scrutinized NBA player since LeBron James. And if you guys remember, LeBron James didn't get his respect until year 13, where he came back and defeated the Golden State Warriors. It took LeBron James 13 seasons for everybody to shut up and respect him, myself included. I mean, I was young, but I mean, still, it was like you look at it and it's like, okay, LeBron was a four-time MVP winner and a two-time NBA finals winner, two-time finals MVP, and there were still questions about the guy. So for Tatum, I'm going to say this. If you're Jason Tatum, just keep doing what he's doing because he is following in that path. They only are talking about him, right? Every great player, there's been negative discourse. Jordan had the same thing. I mean, I wasn't alive, obviously, but Jordan, it was, oh, he can't beat the Bulls. He can't get past Boston. He can't get the job done. He's never going to get the job done. What did MJ do? He ripped off three in a row. Same thing with Kobe. I mean, post LA Shaq Lakers, Miami had won a finals in 06, right? With Shaq had done it without Kobe. Here's Kobe thinking, oh, I got to do it myself. And here's the media. Oh, he hasn't won without Shaq. Can the Lakers do it? Is Kobe really that guy? Is he just a number two? He goes, wins two more. And then it's like, okay, so winning cures everything. Winning shuts everybody up. And Jason Tatum, he's going to keep winning. And he's going to be a great, you ask me, MVP, he's going to get one. I think Tatum's a one-time MVP winner.
I think so
and
too.
I think it's like when he's 31 and he's had like Kyle Griffin, I forget who said it. Celtics probably aren't that good, right? Like they're kind of middle of the road, maybe a 5 seed, and Tatum's averaging like 32, and they're like, okay, you know what? It's time, Tatum. This one's yours, and he probably wins it over a young guy who deserves it.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I feel it's kind of like, and it's just the team. You gotta look at the team. Like you gotta look at kind of how you are. Like we have players that can shoot the ball. You have so many scores, and I know we haven't seen it recently from Drew Holiday, but Drew Holiday could totally give you a lot of points on a night. I know we
Oh
haven't,
yeah.
but we don't have. He doesn't need to score that much.
No.
You have Porzingis, you have Derek White, you have Jalen Brown and Jason.
Payton Pritchard.
Yeah, Peyton Pritchard.
Even
So
like Drew Holiday is like what's it called? Like a sixth option
he,
almost, basically.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would put Pritchard over a higher option than Drew Holiday at this point.
Yeah, and
With
I
the
will
lead
say
he's
this.
been having.
I will say this. I don't know the exact stat, but I remember when we faced the Bucks that playoff run, I'm pretty sure he had around 20 a game. Like he could totally give you
Oh yeah.
20 something a game. He totally could. And I don't think Drew Holiday ran out. I just think it's a different situation that he's in. He's not expected to score here. Here he want passing the ball, playing defense. That's what we expect from him
Exactly.
because like
On
you
the Bucks, he was a second option. Now he's just like a fifth, sixth option. Like it's
so
just a completely different role for him.
and it shows you how many people you said it earlier, Rob, with Tatum passing the ball, that's where his game is best right now. And it shows you one day there will be a time for MVP, but right now it's championships. He has I don't know if you guys saw that picture. Uh it was last year. It was a picture of Tatum with a championship in his eye, like he saw the championship.
Yep,
You
yep.
guys remember that?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what he's envisioning now. It's kind
Yeah.
of him focused on championships.
And the thing is, like, this team's not gonna be together forever. Like, we're like we're paying these guys a lot of money. Like,
Right.
sooner rather than later, we're gonna have to probably trade Holiday. We're gonna have to like question what we're gonna do with Porzingis. Like, we're gonna have to pay Pritchard again. We're gonna have to extend White again in a few years. Like, we're gonna have to like make these financial decisions, and it's important that we just have this win now mindset and try to get as much as we can out of this group.
Absolutely. And there's always gonna be something someone finds about, Tatum. So like if I had the opportunity and what my opinion would be, if I could say it to him, I would. I can't, unfortunately. But like y- Steph Curry is another example. Like Curry's got 4 rings and he's won an NBA Finals MVP once. And eventually, though, he put that narrative to bed. So, like, a lot like before Tatum and Brown had won the championship, there was all this negative discourse on whether they could do it. And what was everyone saying? Just give it time. They're young. Give it time. Say the same thing with in terms of his respect. We've seen Tatum kind of be upset about his respect factor throughout the league. Give it time, JT. You're gonna get it. You're going to get it, and he knows it. He's gonna get his respect. But respect in a league that is so what can you do for me now, like the NBA, it's going to take him 15 years. I mean, you're going to see this where it's never enough. There's always going to be something lingering. So you just let him finish out his career. I mean, really, there's so much
Exactly.
pressure on the guy.
And the thing is, like, everyone after we won, like, they were like, "Oh, he won Finals MVP. Is Brown the first option?" And this and that. There's a lot of discourse on the media, and like, just because you don't win Finals MVP doesn't mean like you weren't the best player in the series. Like, Tatum in the
Oh yeah.
finals, he still averaged the most points, assists, and rebounds. I'm pretty sure. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
throughout
I
the whole
got some
team.
opinions on that. I'm going to keep them to myself, but I got some opinions on that Finals
I
MVP.
personally, I thought Tatum should have won it, Finals MVP.
Yeah.
But
So I was talking with GRD about this. I think it was GRD. I'm pretty sure. I know we've had a lot of special guests on recently, but we were talking about, I don't remember who it was, but we were talking about kind of Tatum had such a great finals, but he messed up one game, I think it was. He had a bad game or not so well, and Brown like never had a bad game, but he was just
I
consistent
think it
all.
was game 2. I think I was at the game where he didn't have a great game. I think it
Yeah.
was Drew Holiday played a good game 2. It was like Drew and Derek White had good games.
Yeah, so it was like Brown was consistent all the way through, so it's kind of like it's a tough one, but I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say it right here, right now. Tatum is gonna get that opportunity this year, and he's gonna take advantage of it. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. I'm saying
Not a
it.
doubt.
I agree.
That's true.
Gosh, so this is so tough to talk about in terms of Tatum because the last thing you want is to create any Tatum and Brown anti-discourse. So I'll preface with this. Jaylen Brown deserved it. I'm not saying Brown wasn't deserving. The two of them are special. But when you lead the team in an NBA Finals in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, and you're one of 5 players to ever do so, you're probably the Finals MVP. With that said, what Jaylen Brown did against Luka Doncic in the chaos he
Yes.
created.
Yeah.
I mean, JB. I'm not saying JB wasn't special. He was special. You ask me though, I'm personally leaning Tatum because again, what Tatum did was special. But it's great problem to have. Great problem to have. So
And the thing is, Tatum has the rest of his career to win the Finals MVP. Like you said with Curry, like Curry has won 4 rings and he has one
right.
Finals MVP. Like, he has the rest of his career to win just one. Like, as long as you win the championship, that's all that matters to me. Obviously, personally, but Finals MVP is obviously something. Yes, you want to win. It's a big accolade to win throughout your NBA career. But Tatum's only what 27, 28 years old. Like, he
Yep.
has the rest of
Yeah,
his career to win
exactly.
one, and I believe that he definitely can.
I think another thing too is it's kind of like Tatum knows he's the best player on the team. There was a
Without
lot
doubt.
of thoughts with Jaylen Brown, kind of, are you worth the money that the Celtics just spent on him? And I think that's kind of more so kind of a factor. Yes, I am the money. I am worth that money. And you guys are wrong for putting me in trade talks for Kevin Durant and all of this. That
Right.
kind of
Right. Right. Right.
I feel it. that was more so like Tatum. You guys have to admit, Tatum proved himself. Tatum, we all know that Tatum is the best player on this team. You see, when you go to the Garden, it's not you. Yeah, you'll see Brown jerseys, but it's all Tatum jerseys pretty much. Like when you walk around and you see someone, it's usually a Tatum jersey. When they talk about who's the player that leads the Celtics, it's Jason Tatum. He's got that. I feel like personally, you might hear Kendrick Perkins say otherwise because I don't like what Kendrick Perkins does with the
He's
Celtics.
just a hater. He's
He is.
bona fide. He wasn't even invited to the parade. Like
I
Jaylen Brown was
know.
just like, no, bro, you're not going to the parade. Like you're
Yeah,
just a
stay on
certified
that
hater.
side, Perk. Stay on that side.
Like
Yeah, stay with your ESPN. We all right. Like, but like with Brown, he never got the respect he deserved, and I feel like kind of that MVP kind of gives him, all right, look, I was worth the money you guys spent on me, and look, now you guys don't have to look to trade me because I am a player that can compete with Jason Tatum and be the best duo in the NBA. I feel like that kind of is more. I feel like it helped him more than it would have helped Tatum. Because
right,
Tatum, like you said, Rob, is going to get the respect he deserves later on in his career.
definitely.
It might not be right now, but a few years down the road, he's going to get that respect. I feel Jaylen Brown is kind of like that sneaky person who kind of really wasn't deserving of everything, if that makes sense. Like there was a lot
Right.
of question marks around his name.
And the
There
thing
was
is,
a
like, if you're getting hated a lot, like that's just like the ultimate like respect thing. No, like it's an honor to be like have such high expectations because that just means you're one of the best players in the league. Like that's what Mazzulla said on like a documentary. He was like, "Oh, like, it's the ultimate like
it's a
compliment, like
privilege.
being disrespected
Yeah,
like that
yep.
because you're such an elite player to where people have such high expectations for you."
Yep, on start.
Right. And for me, like you go back to 2023, Brown Brown was bad in that Miami Heat series, like
Oh
really
yeah,
bad, like super bad. Um, and so you guys make some good points. Maybe last year was Brown's kind of year to prove. He got $304 million, highest paid NBA player, and everyone was kind of questioning it. Um, I think the most important thing with this, like this, because I'm so hesitant to talk about the Brown, Tatum, this, that, who deserves it, who's better, stuff like that. Just because a lot of times you see people, you can give respect to one without bringing down the other, and that's kind of like how I look at it. Is I can say, oh, Tatum probably deserved MVP, and it not be, oh, well, that does not mean I think Jaylen Brown sucks and that Jaylen Brown didn't deserve it. No, it just means that Jaylen Brown deserved. There can be more than one guy that deserves the MVP. So that's like my thing. But like also, I will say, Jaylen Brown, he was huge and he had a lot more to prove that year. I agree with you guys, and Griffin. He had a lot to prove that year in that postseason, and he proved it.
Yeah. I wanted to say this too. I feel like we could talk about the last year's Celtics for hours on hours.
Right.
So I kind of wanted just to wrap it up. Rob, what are your expectations for the rest of this regular season? We'll have you back on for playoffs. I want to do a
Right.
lot more content. I was saying with playoffs. So we'll talk about kind of playoff expectations when you're back on. But what are your expectations to wrap up this regular season? What do the Boston Celtics need to do before playoffs start?
The Boston Celtics need to string together a month of very consistent basketball. They need to take care of the big games and take care of the small games. String together some wins, get feeling good, and most importantly, the Boston Celtics need to stay healthy.
Mhm.
They need to gear up. They need to be ready to go for the playoffs in terms of health. And my expectations in terms of regular season is that these guys, a lot of what you saw for the past 2.5 weeks, I think those December and January days are gone. They're up. They're ready. They can smell it in the air. These guys are smart. They're experienced. They know when they can turn it on and when they need to turn it on. I think they will.
I love that.
I agree.
So, another thing we do here too is at the end of the podcast, we'll give our predictions so we'll have a podcast next Wednesday. So for it'll be two more games. So Cleveland and the
Denver.
Nuggets. So my prediction was they would go 1-2, which so far I'm right. I said it could have been against Cleveland or it could have went against Detroit. So I'm so far on there. Kyle said 3-0. Kyle's out. Lewis, two games. What do you got the Celtics being next time we meet?
But no,
2-0. All right.
I'm gonna be positive about it. I'm not.
It
Yep.
would feel
I
sacrilege.
feel good. Yeah, it would feel weird. Me kind of like not believing in my team. You get me?
Yeah, yeah,
I was gonna say it feels sacrilegious to not say 2-0. I will say I got some two probably of the hardest games of the year. It feels like. So pressure's
That's
on.
true.
I'm gonna go
both at
two and
home too.
zero. Yeah, both are at home. I'm gonna go 2-0, because they just lost to Detroit. So Cleveland on Friday, they're really tough. Boston always responds, so they're really tough to beat twice in a row. That Nuggets game is going to be close. It's going to be good,
Yeah,
but I'm going to say Boston squeaks it out. They get that win. They got a long homestand. Great opportunity. So I'm going to go 2-0. Let's go 2-0.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys again so much for watching. I'm gonna leave his links in description down below. Celtics Talk Weekly. Thank you again so much for joining us. Like I said, we're gonna work on some collabs for playoffs. Anything else you want to say, Rob?
Oh no, man! Thank you guys so much for having me on. It was a blast. You guys, I love what you guys are doing. So can't not support it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Like
thank
and
you.
subscribe and go check that out. Peace.